And we're live. I am back. I was off last week, but I am back today for RockSim Live. This is where we talk about RockSim, RockSim Pro, and the launch visualizer. Today is September 6th, 2024, and it's good to be back. I've got a chat going on here, so if you have a question about RockSim, go ahead and put it in the chat. And if you're new here, I'd like to recognize you, so go ahead and say hello in the chat and put your location where you're watching from, just so I could say, hey, we got Mark Hayes, or David Hayes, from, he's from Michigan, but he is driving through Ohio from Pennsylvania, so I guess he's going back. We have Robert Monday here. Thank you, Robert, for being here. And Eric Sobel from Eureka, California. And Sturk03, he says, hi, Tim. I sent a question to you yesterday in the mail about static margin on short, stubby rockets. Did you receive it? And the answer is yes, I did. And we'll talk about that today. Okay. And we have Terry Wheelock from Texas. Woohoo! So last week I was in Kansas at Airfest. So I was not here. I was actually flying rockets. And it was a lot of fun. The group that hosted it was the Cloudbusters. And they did a great job. It's a well-run launch. Things run pretty smooth. The field was great. The weather was nice. Like the night before, it poured rain, and it knocked the heat out of the air. And the next day, the sun, started out cloudy in the morning, but by the afternoon, it cleared up, and the temperatures were in the mid-80s, and the whole weekend was like that, and it was just beautiful. I camped out on the field, and that was kind of like, I camped out because I couldn't find a hotel room because they're out in the middle of nowhere, and all the other hotels were booked up because of all the Rocketeers that came in. But there was a ton of people that were on the field camping, in campers and tents. I was in my van, and there was a lot of stuff going on at night on the field because there were so many people there. So I would recommend, if you go, don't stay in a motel, go to the field, camp out on the field, bring your trailer or whatever. The guys from Texas, and they call themselves the Texas Consortium because there's so many of them, they put on a rock concert in the middle of the field, all battery powered and generators. It was great. That was like the first time I've ever seen that, but they've done it in the past, but I didn't know. So yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I met a lot, and a lot of you guys were there too. People kept coming up to me and say, "Hey Tim, I've been watching you on the RockSim Live. I enjoyed a lot." So I really appreciate that. It was so nice to meet so many people and have so many people say nice things about this RockSim Live, where we answer questions about RockSim, RockSim Pro, and the launch visualizer. Yeah, so thank you everybody for being here. What is this thing over here? This is, I'm going to do show and tell here for just a second. This is our Nike Hercules that we're working on. It's a two-stage rocket, and it breaks right here in the middle. So this is the upper stage. It's got a cluster of 4 engines in the bottom, and then a single engine in the top. So it's 29 millimeter motors here in the bottom, 29 millimeter in the top. So you can fly it with, big motors. The top stage requires electronics for air starting. So you have to fly it as a two-stage rocket. And then the upper stage has to be ignited using electronics. And the reason I have it in here is because we've started, if you come to Apogee, we do a lot of videos, and so I've been starting the videos on this Nike Hercules, it's a complex rocket, and It's designed by Martin McKee as our product developer here. And I'm building my first one on camera. And I realized it's a little harder than I thought. Those 4-engine clusters down there, getting these tubes properly aligned takes a little bit of effort. But it's worth it. I flew it at Airfest, and it flew great. It was just a beautiful flight. We've flown it at NARAM. That was in early August. We flew it at the National Sport Launch over Memorial Day weekend in May. And it flew great there. And we're planning on flying it again at Chili Blaster. Chili Blaster is a local launch. You know, every club has their big launch of the year. And Chili Blaster is ours for Colorado. Not for Colorado, but for SCORE, which is the Southern Colorado Rocketeers. Although this year they hosted NARAM, and that was a big launch. But their big sport launch without contest flying is called Chili Blaster, and we'll fly it there. And we're going to do something special at Chili Blaster as well. We're going to do a building session on the field for gliders, because we want to try something new. You know, everybody builds just parachute rockets when they do a building session. Well, we're going to build gliders. So, you know, we want to try something a little bit more involved, you know, something that has a little bit of finesse to it, because you got to trim those gliders. But once you trim them, you know, the flight's not over until that glider comes down. And that's going to be awesome. There is going to be a small charge just to cover our expenses. We're not going to make any money off of this. This is just to see what happens when we do a build session on field. So we're going to limit it to 25 people. So if you want to be one of them, you know, hold up your hand and, you know, send us an email. Say, Tim, reserve one of those gliders for me at Chili Blaster. And we'll put one off to the side for you. Again, there's going to be a small fee. I think it's like $8, and it covers the glider and a rocket motor. But you have to build it on the field. You know, we're not selling gliders for $8. So you build it on the field and you fly it right there. If you're not going to build it there, we're not going to let you participate. There's a lot of people that want to do it. So I got parts for the Saturn or Nike Hercules. I just kind of want to show these off. What's going on with it? Now, all the booster is all tubes, but for this rocket, we've invested a lot of money into it. Last year, we knew that we were going to do this kit. So last year, we bought the nose cone, and we built a couple of rockets around it. One of them was the Catalyst. Another one is the Kronos. So those rockets are out now, and they use this nose cone, but we designed this nose cone specifically for the Nike Hercules. And then we had to get a tail cone because the Nike Hercules also uses a tail cone. So this is brand new. That has not been any kits at all yet. It's a blow molded part. It'll be on the bottom. The nose cone's on the top. And you'll also see there's, I don't know if you can see this because the lighting, but we've also slotted the nose cone for the fins. So it's a through-the-wall fins on the nose cone. And we also slotted the tail cone as well for the fins that you see over here. Also, that we invested in was the transition. So this is injection molded plastic, and it's beautiful. And so this will slide into there like that, and the fit is just perfect. It's just rock solid. In fact, it's so rock solid, and the fit is so well that we're worried about it separating not easily enough. So one of the things that we're going to do is actually put little spacers in there just to kind of lift this up just a little bit so it comes out easier. The fit is just too perfect. The nose cone, this is right here has the eBay. I don't know if you can see this, but we have a cutout for the eBay where the electronics go. So this is the booster stage motor, and the motor will come up, and let me get this out of the way. comes up all the way up to here on the tube. So this is the amount of tube for the parachute. And it's not a lot, considering, you know, you got the shoulder on the nose cone, has to fit in there too. So there's not a lot of room. So basically what we have to do is you have to put the parachute inside of the nose cone. So it gets stuffed inside just to make room for everything because of the electronics bay right there where you're going to put your staging electronics. So that is some of the new stuff. And while I was away at Airfest, this came in. And this is the last of the details that we needed to be able to put this kit together. So there's like little antennas, and we call this the small parts. So there's 30 little small parts that get glued onto the rocket as scale data. You know, so it's a real, the scale on this rocket is pretty good. It's like 1/10 scale rocket of the real version. So we were waiting for these to come in. They came in and they're beautiful. So, so now we have all the parts, although we're still waiting for these. This was the prototypes. So now that they have these, they're going to ship them. They'll do production, but these go fast. You know, it probably takes 30 seconds to make each one. So you can see we've invested a lot of money in this rocket, and I'm kind of promoting it. And if you go on the Apogee website, let me bring up the Apogee website so you can see it. Our website is apogeerockets.com. This is also where you can get RockSim. But here in the search bar, just type in Nike Herc, and it will pop up right here. And we started building the page so you can see, you know, this rocket, and, you know, you can see it flow. This is when we flew it at National Sport Launch. So if you flew beautifully there. This is down in Pueblo at Narum. This is Martin. He's the designer. These little pads, and those are also injection molded. Here's the 4-engine cluster and the single in the top. You know, more images of it. The fins again are built up. These I don't know what they're called, but they're kind of like tab fins, and we actually cant those a little bit to give the rocket some spin stability so that it flies straight. Anything with you can't see, but forward fins, like on this rocket, where the fins go all the way up the nose cone. That makes it really unstable. So we had to do a lot of tricks to make sure that that upper stage is stable. Normally, the real rocket has a nuclear warhead up there, so you got uranium. Uranium is a heavy isotope, so but ours is not. So so we did a lot of tricks, like little spin tabs down here. When it's got the booster stage on it, these fins are just massive. So when the booster is together, it flies straight as an arrow. But we were worried about the upper stage. So the upper stage is going to spin it. This is Martin built one in Korean colors because South Korea used these as well as the United States. We were just testing at this point the stability of that upper stage. So we had to fly it that way just to make sure it was stable. And it's like, it works better when it has some forward velocity. When you're starting from zero, it kind of meanders a little bit. But once if it's on a 2-stage, when you got forward speed going over those fins, it makes a lot of difference. And there's the electronics inside. And here's a picture of the real Nike Hercules. You know, from what I hear, that the real one, it reaches Mach 1, like about when this photo was taken. It's already going so fast because it's got so much thrust coming out of it. And then here's, you know, some standard pictures that you see on the internet. So that's the Nike Hercules. I won't talk about it anymore because we're here to talk about RockSim. Tara Wheelock is asking about what kind of glider are we going to be building. We're going to build the Mini Condor. So if you type in Mini Condor, this is the rocket we're going to build. It's a small rocket. It's powered by mini motors from Estus. Come on, open up. that's what it looks like. It's got my mouse froze. My screen froze. There it goes. It came back. Yeah, so it's got a glider pod on the top. And this is a beautiful flying glider, and it's an easy one to build, and so that's why we chose it. It's got a resin piece here. Everything's laser cut. Yeah, it's a beautiful glider, and I think we're going to sell it for like $8 just to cover our cost. Normally it's $19, so it's still a pretty good deal if you buy it at full price. Okay, so let's get back to RockSim. So if you are brand new to RockSim, if you've never used it before, you can come here to our website, apogeerockets.com. Here on the menu bar, go to How To and Guides, and then come down here to Software on the side column. And then this is where it tells you where you can get the free trial, where you can purchase it. You know, basically, what is RockSim? You can click on that link, the features, the frequently asked questions, what can you do with RockSim, system requirements, and version history. We also have video tutorials other than what I'm doing here. We have our live training, which is what I'm doing right now. So if I click on that, it takes you to this page, which is our archive page. We are on episode 177 today, so we don't have 176 up here. Still need to get that up there. We're a little bit behind. We got a lot going on with this Nike Hercules. Yeah, so this is where you can find out what we talked about in the past. And yeah, it's a good place to start. Okay. First question was from Sturk03. And he sent one by email, so I'll answer his. That's not it. What am I looking for? This one. Okay, he writes, I'm building a lock precision doorknob, and I have some questions on the file. I'm assuming it has to do with stubby rockets not meeting the 10-to-1 length to diameter ratio, where the CP calculation might be off for short rockets like that. You had written an article about it in the past. Actually, I did not, but I think I know what you're talking about. It shows a cone from the aft of the rocket, and the overall length is way longer, and the rocket is, but no explanation what or why this is presented this way. Could you show this tomorrow in the live and explain what they are doing and how and why it might help to make sense out of it? Okay, so what he's talking about an article that was written in our Peak of Flight newsletter a long time ago. And this was written by Bruce Levinson. And this was in 2005, so 19 years ago. He wrote this. And this is the simulation of wide rockets using RockSim version 8, although we're on version 11 right now. An additional base drag consideration for rockets with less than a 10-to-1 length to diameter ratio. So essentially, what Bruce did was, if you read the article, he talks about, he found some data, because he was interested in what are they? Either pyramid rockets or what are they called? I'm having a brain fart. Spool rockets, where a spool is two discs with a tube in the middle, and they usually wrap wire around them. Well, a lot of people have taken those spools, taken the wire off, and then turn it sideways, put a rocket motor, and launch it, and they're stable. It's like, how is this stable? And so what Bruce found was an article that showed how to make those stable, and then he applied it to short rockets like the Estus Fat Boy, which don't have a length to diameter ratio that is greater than 10, because the Barrowman equations, which calculate the center of pressure, which is back here, One of the assumptions that Jim Barrowman made was that the rocket had a length to diameter ratio that's greater than 10. So the length of it divided by the diameter is bigger than 10. And that gives you long, skinny rockets. Now we're talking about short, fat rockets, which violate the Barrowman equations. And what he talks about in his article is that there is some base drag consideration. So what he was considering here is that behind the rocket, there's a lot of turbulence. And that turbulence is generating a lot of drag. And because of that drag, it's actually helping the rocket with its stability. It's like the spool rockets. They don't have fins on them, so they have no fins to guide them. They have a lot of drag, though. And that base drag helps make the rocket fly straighter. So what he found, what he could do, was to simulate a spool rocket with a disc with a cone hanging off the back end. And his formula was to make the cone pi, the number pi, which is 3.14, times the diameter of the rocket. And then, so that's the length of the cone, and the back end of the cone, the diameter of the back end, is the same diameter as the rocket. And so you attach that to the rocket, and that's going to move your center of pressure back. It works for spool rockets, and he thinks that it works well for short, stubby rockets. At what point do you stop putting the cone on the back? I don't know. I wish I did. There's if we had wind tunnels or computational fluid dynamics, we could maybe do some experiments, but we don't. So you could build some rockets, and the problem is the motor for this is in the normal spot, so it's going to burn that cone off. So let me open up RockSim here, and let me open up the Fat Boy. So let's open up. Oh, he sent me a rocket. Did I save it? Shoot, I don't think I saved it. So I'll open up. It was the doorknob. So let me see if I can find the doorknob. 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 I'm looking for it. Yeah, there we go. So we have an Estus doorknob. No. Okay, so here is the Estus doorknob. It's a relatively short rocket, so it's got a diameter of 3, a length of 27. So 27 divided by 3 is 9. So it's got a length to diameter ratio of 9. So this does violate the Barrowman equations. So right now our center of pressure is at 21 inches, which you can see right here, from the tip of the nose cone. So that's this little symbol right there. And let's put a motor in this rocket so we can see what's going on when we put a motor. And this is a motor mount of 29 millimeters. And I don't want to show all engines. I want to show only those that match the motor diameter. Let's try an Estus F15. And let's give it a delay of 8. I don't know. And say OK. Okay, so now by putting the motor in there, what happened was the center of gravity, which used to be up here, shifted back because now the back end's heavier. So our margin is 0.72. All right, so now how do we add that cone on the back? So I'm going to close all these so that Okay, so I'm going to add the cone to this body tube right here. And if I go over here, there's nothing that says cone, but we do have one that says transition, and that's what we're going to use. So I'm going to click on that, and it's going to open up the database, and we're not going to go from the database, so I'm going to cancel out of the database. And this is the editor screen for the cone. And right now I'm looking at the rear view of the rocket. So if you come over here to the side, and we'll select the side view, and so now we can see it. And our cone is not showing because everything is 0 right now. So the front diameter, we got to make this, we want to make it as pointy as possible. So I'm going to make it tiny, so 0.01 inches. And then my rear diameter, remember the rear diameter is the same diameter as the body of the rocket. So that's going to be 3 inches. And then the length is pi times the diameter of the rocket. So let me get a calculator here. So we got a diameter of 3 inches. So pi times 3 inches is 9.42 inches long. Okay, so our length is 9.42 inches long. So now we have a cone on the back. One of the other things that Bruce said in his article was it has to be massless. It can't have any mass. And the reason is that's going to shift the center of gravity back on us. So we need to make this like paper thin. So I'm going to make it paper thin, and it's going to be hollow. And you can see right now our mass is 0 grams for that component. And if I look at it in 3D, you can see my cone sticking out the back of the rocket. So now the purpose of this was to change the center of pressure. And before, our center of pressure was at 21 inches, so it was a little bit further forward. By putting this cone on the back, it shifted it back, and now our margin is 1.18. Before it was 0.7 something. So that's what it did to move the margin back. It didn't add any mass to the rocket, so theoretically it should still fly as high as it did before. We'll say okay here. And the thickness must be greater than 0. Okay, so we got to add some thickness here. So I'm going to make it 0. That much. And oh, what happened? My button is not working. Oops. It's asking me to save it. I don't want to save it. Is there something else open behind me? Export template. This has happened to me before. It's asking me to save this component. It's kind of like it's looking in the database. My button stopped working. What's going on? Let's click here. Oh, save your changes? Yes. Okay, well, I got out around that. So my cone is on here. We can run a simulation. Choose, okay, we already got the Estus F15-8 in there. We're going to deploy the parachute at maximum ejection, launch conditions. We're launching from an altitude of 700 feet, and we have a 5-mile-an-hour wind. And let's see the flight profile. Because this is a little bit more stable, we'll see what it looks like. And it's taking off. It's going really straight, actually. So that's pretty good. I'm okay with that. And there's the parachute, and that was right on cue. And then it's coming down right there. Okay, so I don't know if this is going to answer your question about cones, because there's a lot of questions that I have. Do I use them on my own rockets? I don't. But Bruce liked them. I know he liked them, and he swore that it worked. To make, it allows you to design rockets that are on that hairy edge of stability, and if they're under that 10-to-1 ratio, they might be stable because of the extra drag. RockSim doesn't calculate that extra drag. And if we knew that base drag better, maybe we could, but I don't know. So it's going to take some experimenting from the modeler if you want to use this technique. I wish I could endorse it fully, but if you don't have that cone on there to make it stable, this rocket was stable at had a margin of stability of 0.7 prior to adding the cone. I would still be okay flying it with that margin of stability. But if you're not okay with it, you have to put nose weight up in the front to move the center of gravity forward so that the margin, which is the distance that these are apart divided by the diameter, is as close to or greater than 1 as possible. So let me know, Mark, if that answered your question. All right, so let's go back to other questions that people have asked. David Hayes says, question, will RockSim 10 show component total mass of a subassembly or just the component masses? Okay, so we need a rocket with a subassembly. I was just looking at one the other day. Mars Snooper. I'm not going to say that. Okay, so this is the Estus Mars Snooper. And you can see what it looks like. And I can tell it's got pods on it because the only way to put that there is to have a pod on it. So you go to the rocket design components. And if we go down to the pods, I swore it added. So you can see right here, it's not telling me the weight of that pod. And I swore that it did. Maybe it's because this rocket is brand new, or it was made old. Let's try it. Let's go to this forward tube, add a pod. We'll just throw one on there real quick and see what happens. Holy cow, okay. So that's where the location of the pod is. And we'll say okay. And now it's running a little slow. I got a lot. When I'm running my Mac, it runs slow. I need a new Mac. So let's add a nose cone to that pod. And it doesn't matter what nose cone I use. Just add one. Oh, that's a big nose cone. Let's go choose the database again. Let's make something a little bit smaller. PNC 24. Okay, well, yeah, it's still pretty big. All right, but I'll add that. So that is added to the pod. If I come back to this screen here, let's see what happens. It still didn't add. It still didn't add the weight. So I guess that answers my question. It doesn't add. It should. I thought it did. Maybe there's a preferences that I'm not. I'm looking at my preferences here. Show masses in the component tree. Let's turn that off. And it shouldn't be showing the masses right now. Okay, so now it took away the mass. I'm going to turn that back on. Preferences. under units, show the masses and componentry. Now this is only in version 11, so it's not in older versions. This is a new feature. So turn it back on. It's thinking. Still not showing. I swear it showed before. I'll have to talk to the programmer about it. But we have our answer. But what you can do is, let's see if I can find another pod. So here's a pod right here. But it only has one part. But if the pod has multiple parts, all the component masses are going to be listed right below it. So you can just take out your calculator and add them up really quick. So that should work. Okay, so David Hayes asks another question. Also, not sure RockSim 10 is updating the engine info properly. Dates on engine files. The data folder do not change. Also, many of the engines come through with a question mark for the diameter when I try to load them in a sim. Okay, so RockSim 10 doesn't auto update the motors like RockSim 11. But he's saying I have dates on engine files. The data folder do not change. Also, many of the engines come through with a question mark for the diameter when I load them in a sim. Well, sometimes if you go here to the flight simulations tab and you add a new column called engine diameter. So right now it's not showing. So if you right click on the column header and then choose organize columns, you can choose engine diameter and then click OK. And it adds the new column for engine diameter. And like right here, you'll see there's a question mark. I think this is what he's talking about. And the reason is, let me take that column and move it over here so we can see it. Okay, so here's the engine diameter. So a D10-7 from Apogee, it says, I don't know what diameter it is. And the reason is in this simulation summary screen, which is what you're seeing right here, these are old simulations. So basically what this is telling me is that these simulations were probably run prior to version 11. So they were run in like 9 or version 10, and then the file has been opened up in version 11. Version 11 saves the diameter. Version 10 and version 9 did not. So the simulation summary screen won't show it. But if I run a new simulation, it should pick up the diameter. So if I use a Quest C18-8, click OK, and then launch it, and it runs the simulation, I'm expecting to see a diameter right here because now under new flights, it's loading the diameter. But if you're seeing them in the engine database, choose engine, you should see them here. If you're seeing a question mark here in this screen under engine selections, I've never seen that before. So I couldn't tell you why you're seeing that. As far as engine dates and the engine files, that's those files are the original files are stored. Let's quit that. If you go to your Finder and go to the Go menu and you hit the command, is it the command? No, the Option key, I can load my library because they're kind of stored in a weird place. So it's under application support. So why is this not in alphabetical order? application support. Let's change it to this way. And then under Apogee components, I am running version 11. And then they're under the data folder. So now I'm in the data folder, I hope. Okay, yeah, I opened up the data folder. And so here are the dates that they were, I'm not sure if they were the dates that they were added to the RockSim database. All of these show 2024. So I'm thinking that's the date that they were added to the RockSim database into this folder, downloaded from thrustcurve.org. But I don't know what the question is. It says that they are not in the file, but they are in ThrustCurve and available on Aerotech's website. Spring and can't cite any specific examples, sorry. Yeah, without a specific example, I don't know if I can help. We have Akrash writes, what is the real difference between OpenRocket and RockSim? RockSim costs $50. OpenRocket is free. RockSim is better. People that know what they're doing use RockSim. People that want to save money and don't, I don't know, they'll use OpenRocket. I don't know. You want to use RockSim. I mean, OpenRocket, oops, where'd it go? This one right here. I am pretty sure that OpenRocket can't make a rocket that looks like this. RockSim can do some spectacular things. And I'm still learning. And I've been developing the program. David says spring. He says driving, not spring. TURDA4U, TURDA4U says, I'll take one when available. I think he's talking about the Nike Hercules. Starco 3 is my picture frozen, and maybe it froze on my computer for a second there, so hopefully it's not freezing for you too much longer. Alan White is here, and he says, hi, Tim. Alan White from Sarahbrook, Texas, checking in. It was a pleasure to finally meet you at Airfest last weekend. Looking forward to that new Nike Hercules. Thank you. Mark Sell says, do you have a RockSim file for a spool rocket? And I don't know. Oops, I don't want to save. I hit the wrong button. File open. Go to my search bar and type in spool. See if anything comes up. That looks like a RKT file. There's a picture of one. I do not have a spool rocket file. Sorry, I don't. David Hayes says, try simulating the doorknob without the cone. Well, I already lost it. Low Budget Bob, he says, hi from Buckeye, Arizona. Terry Wheelock says, do you need a cone for a cone rocket? And the answer is maybe. I don't know. Ron's Rocket says, add a pod to the Nike Hercules. Why would I want to add a pod to the Nike Hercules? Okay, I got an example. Nike Hercules. Okay, Nike Hercules rocket. I should have a new one. Because Martin made me one. Let's try this one. Did my changes? No. So one of the reasons you might want to add a spool or a pod is maybe you want to put a camera on the outside of the rocket. So that would be a use for a pod on the Nike Hercules. The Nike Hercules, see this transition here in the middle? RockSim doesn't like shapes like that. It needs things to be circular like this. So we had to cheat on the back end of the rocket right here to make a Nike Hercules so that we could actually fly one. But to add a spool, or not a spool, a camera, you find a body tube. So I can say, I'm going to put my camera on this tube. And then you're going to say, okay, so that highlights that tube. And then you come over here and you'll select a pod. And so right now I put the pod right there. The pod is a collection of parts. So it doesn't look like anything right now, except for just this symbol. So we're going to call it a camera pod. Okay, click OK. And then we can start adding parts. So what does a camera look like? Well, again, we don't have too many parts we can use. We can use a nose cone or a body tube or a transition. I'm going to try a transition just to say, what the heck? And it always looks in the database when you're starting a new part. So I'm going to cancel out of that. And so we're going to call this the camera. And we're going to give it a front diameter of, I don't know, it's like a 1/2 inch. And a rear diameter that's like 0.75 inches. And let's give it a length of 2 inches. And so it attached our camera right here. It's made out of solid, and so it's going to weigh 11 grams, and I can live with that. And let's change the color to red. And the 2D color to red. Click OK. Click OK. And so at this point, we've added a pod to the Nike Hercules. And I'm waiting for it to refresh. Oh, I put it right in the middle of the fin. So I would have to move that pod around. So let's go back to the camera pod. And it should open up here in a second. It's thinking. Ron's Rockets is here, and he says, that's awesome. Alfred Indy says he met David Hayes. David, you are a celebrity. At the Tripoli, Michigan 2 weeks ago, it was nice meeting someone from the RockSim forum. Ron's Rockets says what is going on here? It should have opened this up. It kind of like froze my RockSim. It just doesn't like when I'm doing too many things at once. But I'm probably going to have to quit RockSim just to get out of it. And it won't let me click on anything else. Starko3 says, where is the autosave switch on RockSim? There is no auto switch for saving. I wish there was. I wish it was like Google. But sometimes you don't want it to autosave. Ron's Rocket says, we have a 100K foot rocket to launch on Friday the 13th. Wow. That's going to be spectacular. My RockSim is froze up. So let's see if I can quit. No, it does not want to let me quit. So I'm going to have to force quit. All right, so I forced quit. I got RockSim Pro in the background. Alfred Indy says, my only mistake was not getting my motor order into Apogee in time and could not launch the Kronos. Lesson learned. Yeah, you got to order those motors early. Right now, we are slim pickings as far as rocket motors go from Aerotech and Cesaroni. Aerotech is behind. Everything's okay with the company as far as we know. I talked to him at NARAM in early August, and he says they've just been swamped. And because they're so swamped, they just can't get things out fast enough. There's a lot going on besides hobby rocketry. There's university projects, there's commercial projects, there's military projects that Aerotech and RCS, which is the parent company, they're working on, and it's sucking up all their time. Not the resources, just the time. So they don't have time to make motors. But like if I go to rocket motors and if I go to 29 millimeter motors, and if I scroll down to the chart down here, we do have some, but there's a lot that are sold out. You know, sold out, sold out, sold out. Sold out, especially when you start getting into the bigger ones, you know, the G's, you know, the big G's sold out. Look at all that. This is killing me here. We do have an H135. And the 38 millimeter motors are the same way. It's just like we're sold out of everything. So if you need to make a motor order and you see that the motor is in stock, you better snatch it up. That's all I can say. Aerotech, they're telling us because they're so behind, it might be 6 months between orders. We order every month. So we're on a 6-month lag. So every month we get a little bit. Yeah. So order them when you see them. You know, we on the sold out items, if you click on or go to the item page, like this is the I-243, you can come here to the back in stock notification button. You click on that, and it will take you here where you can enter your name and email address, and you have to enter the CAPTCHA just to prove you're a human, and it will put you on our automated notification list. So as soon as we receive them, our website automatically that same day will send out an email saying, hey, we have the motor in stock, or any item. We're also doing the same thing for the Nike Hercules. So if you want to be on the notification list for the Nike Hercules, go to that Nike Hercules page, click on the back in stock notification, and then as soon as we release them, you'll get a notification. There's already a big list of people, which I appreciate, because we need to sell a lot of them to pay back all the investment I made in the tooling. Troy Airmet says the H35 is a great 29 millimeter motor. So you have an endorsement from Troy there. Get it while you can get it. Terry Wheelock says, I put Big Mama rocket video short on my channel, designed with RockSim. Okay, cool. We got like 5 minutes left in this thing. We can quit early unless somebody has another question. I'm just going back through here to make sure that I've got all the questions. A lot of good questions today. We talked about the Nike Hercules. We showed a RockSim file for it. We talked about how to put a pod on a Nike Hercules. We talked about spool rockets. We talked about short, stubby rockets and how drag can add stability to your rocket. We talked about the cone on the back of the rocket. We talked about, what else did we talk about? We talked about the difference between Open Rocket and RockSim. We talked about our glider build. And we talked about do pods track the weight of all the items in the pod. I swear it used to do that. It's like there must be a button I'm missing. All right. So Ron's Rocket says, are you going to sell the Aerotech stainless steel launch rod? When I was at NARAM, I talked to Gary, and he showed the stainless steel. It's a two-piece stainless steel launch rod, 1/4 inch, instead of the aluminum one that comes with the Mantis launch pad. And I said, Gary, you got to sell that stainless steel one separately because that's a nice little product. The fact that you can take it apart and put it in a nice small box, that's worth it. So as soon as we know that they're available, we'll try to get some on order. Turda for you says, Tim, I'm going for my level 1 cert and I'm using RockSim 11. What is a good launch rail length to use that would be something they may have at the event? 1010? Yes. If they're using a 1010 rod, the standard length is 8 feet or 96 inches. So when you're doing your RockSim simulations, make the launch guide length 96 inches. Or is it? Yeah. Wait a minute, is that right? 9 times 12 is 108. 108 inches. Let me double check. My math is going. Getting hungry. 9 times 12, 108. There you go. He says, do you have a choice when you set up for the length, or do they use what is there set up on the launch pad number? Like I said, most of the times the 1010 rails are 8 feet long. It's rare to have one that's shorter, but it is possible. So run your simulations to make sure. So let me open a design here real quick. Let me go to the design folder. And let's go. Zephyr, open. And have you made any changes? No. Oh, and it crashed. All right, let's try this one. Ron's Rocket says it depends on what the club has available. When I was at Airfest, I needed a 1/4 inch launch rod, and those normally they're 6 feet long, but they only had them on their pad at 4 feet. So you get what you get, and you don't throw a fit. But I want to show you what you do if you have a short rod. Okay, so I wanted to get the Zephyr. Okay, so here's the Zephyr. Let's put a rocket motor in it. Choose engine. All right, so H100. Let's make it a custom delay of, I don't know, let's call it 9 seconds. Use that. Click OK. Okay, so under simulation controls, starting state. The launch guide length, say they don't have an 8 foot long one and they only have a 6 foot long. So 6 foot is 72 inches, and we'll launch straight up. And here under launch conditions, you plug in your wind. Maybe it's an 8-mile-an-hour wind. And then hit launch. And there should be a column header that says thrust to weight ratio at launch guide departure. A lot of people like to see that one greater than 5, so that one's good. Organize columns. Let's organize columns, and I'll show you time. We're looking for velocity. Oh, here it is. Velocity at launch guide departure. Let me turn off some of these other ones here. Okay, so velocity at launch guide departure, and what we're looking for, where's that last one? So here's the one that we just ran. Our velocity at launch guide departure is at 36. I want to see that number above 30. So even on a 6-foot rail, if you don't get an 8-foot rail, you're still okay. So if I do another simulation with a 108-inch long rail and launch it. Okay, so now my launch guide departure is at 46 miles per hour at launch guide departure, so it's even better. So the longer the rod or the rail, the better. So if you have a choice, ask for the longer one. But if they don't have one available, run that simulation, make sure the velocity at launch guide departure is greater than 30. You can also look at the thrust to weight ratio. A lot of RSOs, when you come up to the table and present your rocket, they may ask you what's the thrust to weight ratio, and you can say it's 9.1. We calculate ours different from other people. We calculate ours at the launch guide departure. So what is the thrust when the rocket is just leaving the rail? Because that's like the worst spot in the flight. If it's if you don't have enough thrust, that's the slowest speed it's ever going to be, is coming off that rail. So we calculate it right as it's coming off the launch rail. And this becomes particularly important when you're doing clusters, because when you're doing clusters, figuring out the thrust to weight ratio is a lot harder. But with RockSim, we can do it really quick, really easy. Oh, he says we don't see your screen. Sorry about that. I'm so sorry. So I ran my simulation with the Zephyr, and so you can see the first time I rode, I launched it. I got 2,013 feet and a launch velocity at launch guide departure of 36. And to show this column, like we did before, right-click on the column header, organize columns, and then you can select which ones you want to display in the flight summary graph right there. So I had turned on velocity at launch guide departure and the thrust to weight ratio at launch guide departure. And so here's the first one, and here's the second one. So 36 on the first one, 45 on the second one. And the only difference was this one had the 6-foot launch rod, and this one had the 8-foot long. Turda for you says, thank you, Tim. I was testing my 5.5-inch Goblin on a Cicerone I-100RL, but did not realize it. The rail was set at 36 inches. Now that I've changed it to 96, the rocket stays in safe cone. Good. Ron's Rocket says, let us know when you're heading to Oahu anytime. Woo-hoo. All right, I will. My wife has been wanting to go. Okay, so we're after 3 o'clock. So that launch guide length, just to show you, is under the starting state tab when you are loading engines. So the engine selection was this one, then you go over here to starting state, and that's where you change the launch guide length. Okay. All right, so sorry about not sharing my screen. I was talking about the Nike Hercules. Anyway, I will be back next Friday, same time. I'm not going anywhere. I don't have any trips coming up for a long time. So, yes, I should be around. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. For all of you that are using RockSim, thank you so much. You are what makes me push new features into RockSim. I think the last time we were talking about some of the new features in RockSim Pro. So go watch episode 176, which is not on our website, but it should be on our YouTube channel. All right, so we're going to stop here after I give you a countdown to launch. So in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go out and launch something.